verses of the Torah Parsha, so that no tribe is left behind.
When thou goest forth to war against thine enemies, and Yahweh thy Elohim hath delivered them into thine hands, and thou hast taken them captive, and seest among the captives a beautiful woman, and hast a desire unto her, that thou wast have her to thy wife. Then thou shalt bring her home to thine house, and she shall shave her head and pare her nails, and she shall put the raiment of her captivity off from her, and shall remain in thine house, and bewail her father and her mother a full month. And after that thou shalt go in and be her husband, and she shall be thy wife. And it shall be, if thou hast no delight in her, thou shalt let her go whither she will, but thou shalt not sell her at all for money. Thou shalt not make merchandise of her, because thou hast humbled her. If a man have two wives, one beloved and another hated, and they have borne him children, both the beloved and the hated, and if the firstborn son be hers that was hated, then it shall be that when he maketh his sons inherit that which he hath, that he may not make the son of the beloved firstborn before the son of the hated, which is indeed the firstborn. But he shall acknowledge the son of the hated for the firstborn, by giving him a double portion of all that he hath. For he is the beginning of his strength, and the right of the firstborn is his. If a man have a stubborn and rebellious son, which will not obey the voice of his father or the voice of his mother, and that, when they have chastened him, will not hearken unto them, then shall his father and his mother lay hold on him, and bring him out unto the elders of the city, and unto the gate of this place. And they shall say unto the elders of the city, This our son is stubborn and rebellious. He will not obey our voice. He is a glutton and a drunkard. And all the men of his city shall stone him with stones, that he die. So shalt thou put evil away from among you, and all Israel shall hear and fear.
Amen. Abba Yahweh, we love you and appreciate you today, Father. We thank you so much for everything that you've done for us, Father. We thank you for bringing us to your house today, your appointed day, Father, in this place where you've put your name. Abba, we just ask that you would touch our hearts and our minds today, Father, that we would receive your word in the way that you would have us to receive it. Father, I ask that you touch me, that I may bring your word to your people, that they may glean from it what they need. Father, we just love you and we thank you so much, most of all for the gift of your precious son, Yahushua. But Father, we thank you for this word that we're about to receive. And Abba will just give you all the praise and all the glory. In Yahushua's name, amen. All right, so the Parsha today is called Teze, which means when you go out or when you go forth, okay? So he was telling them, when you go forth from here, right? When you go out to have a war, right? When you go out to fight against your enemies, okay? There's some things you need to do first. You know, because you can't go unprepared to the battle, right? So Chris, if you'll read verse 10 again, please.
When thou goest forth to war against thine enemies, and Yahweh the Elohim hath delivered them into thine hands, and thou hast taken them captive. Okay,
no, that's fine. That's fine. Okay, so the thing is, he says, when you go forth to war, all right? Well, here's the thing. We go out to fight war every day, right? We get out of bed. I've told you all this because I believe this, you know. We have choices that we have to make. And there are things that we've got to fight every day. Okay? Not only do we war with, you know, people that we see or people that come against us or any of that kind of stuff. But some of our toughest wars are fought when we're by ourselves. All right? We war with our thoughts. We war with our desires. We war with our self-image. A lot of us see ourselves as something much less than what we really are. But we war with that because we may not be, you know, what the societal picture of perfection might be. All right? And that causes a lot of issues. But we also know that we fight with who? There's three other things that we fight with all the time. The world, the flesh, and the devil, right? And we know that if we take out that flesh, that solves a lot of the problem there. If we get rid of that flesh, if we fight that guy, you know what I mean? That helps out a lot. makes the battle not so strenuous. All right? The biggest thing that I think that we need to remember, though, and this a lot of times is the hardest part for us, is that the battle doesn't belong to us. Whatever battle we're fighting, it doesn't belong to us, right? The scriptures tells us that it's Yahweh that goes before us. When we're walking according to His will and His way, right? When we walk in His commandments, when we walk in His manner, when we walk after His pattern, right? It's Him that goes before us. So it really doesn't matter what we're facing, right? Whether it's a financial situation, it's a anxiety situation. We talk about the bad brain, right? Whether any of this kind of stuff, it doesn't matter, because He's going to get the victory. Like I said, He's the one in charge, and He's the one leading the fight, right? So let's go to 2 Corinthians 10, verses 3 through 5, please.
One of my favorites. Cotton dog.
For though we walk in the flesh, we do not war after the flesh. For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through Elohim to the pulling down of strongholds, casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalted itself against the knowledge of Yahweh, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of the Messiah.
Okay, so here's the thing. We may be walking in the flesh, right? We're in a flesh body, but not everything that we fight against is a fleshly thing, right? There's principalities and powers, right? And there's all kind of stuff that these eyes can't see. But the eyes of the Spirit, you can see them there. You know what I mean? You see them with the eyes of the Spirit. You may not see them with the eyes of the flesh, but you'll see them with the eyes of the Spirit. And the thing is, the fight that we're fighting is not against a fleshly creature. It's not you know what I mean? We're fighting about, like I said, principalities and powers, and every things that exalt themselves above Yahweh, right? Because think about that. We do that sometimes. We take an object or a problem and we say, wow, man, this thing is so huge. I don't know what I'm going to do. Well, you've just made the problem bigger than the solution. Because He's the solution, right? But if I take this thing right here and I said, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm going to... I've made it bigger than Him, and I've said, you can't help me in this situation. And so, what have I done? I've already lost the battle. I've lost the fight. Because I'm not relying on the one who is going before me. I'm trying to elbow, let me get, I got you, get out of the way. And that's not how we get victory. That's not how we, what's the word, Rebbe? That's not how we overcome. Right? Scriptures say that they overcame Him by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. So the thing is, without a test, there is no testimony. We got to go through this stuff every day. You know what I mean? There's only one way the only way that He told us to do it wasn't go around it or under it. We got to go through it. That's what Messiah said about when He was praying in the garden, right? He told him, He said, I pray not that you take them out of the world, but that you lead them through, because there was some serious tests that they was going to have to go through later on. Can you imagine, being, all the things that happened to Him, being crucified and sawed in half and all this kind of stuff that, it was bad enough being put on the Isle of Patmos. But think about what led up to that. You know what I mean? The point is, we've got to remember that we don't always war with those things that we can see. There's all kinds of spirits out there, right? There's all kinds of spirits out there. But we got to know that the one that is in us is stronger than the one that's out there, right? Okay, we got to know that He that is within me is more powerful than he that is where? In the world. All right? So, like I said, the warfare we face is not always carnal. So we've got to be ready to fight against anything anywhere, anytime, including ourselves. We make more trouble for ourselves than anybody, don't we? We do. We make more trouble for ourselves than anybody makes for us. Well, some of us are very practiced at it. Okay? that's the most. All of us are very good at that. Okay, but that's the thing we got to remember. We come by that honestly, because we're the seed of Adam, and I mean it just exponentially got worse and worse and worse and worse, and now we're where we're at. And I got news for you: it's got to get even more. It's got to get even worse than what it is before it gets any better. You know, what do they say? It's always darkest when? Before the dawn, right? So we got to know that what we're dealing with now, this is warfare that we've got every day. All right? And we got to do what we got to put on that whole armor, right? Like it talks about in Ephesians. We got to put on that whole armor. You know, we got to have that helmet of salvation and that breastplate of righteousness. Right? And we got to have feet shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace. And we got to have the sword of the Spirit. And we got to have the shield of faith. We got to have all that stuff. Because if you didn't have that, you go out into battle, what's going to happen? You're going to find where your weak spot is. Right? And that's what they're going to use to take you down. All right? And don't you think that the flesh knows where you're the weakest at? Of course it does. So we got to remember that the flesh is really good at reminding us of where we once were. Y'all agree with that? Okay? My flesh is real good at reminding me of where I used to be and what I used to do and how I used to act. It's real good at that. And it usually happens real late at night. When I ain't got nothing else going on in my mind, then it pops up, hey, you remember when you did this and you did, hey man, shut up, I'm trying to sleep. Yeah. Don't come back to me with all that mess. That's in the past. That's gone. I ain't trying to remember none of that. I bless the Father that He does let me remember, because it helps me to see it in other people and in other places. I thank Him for that. But I'm not going to allow who I used to be to try and drag down who I am now. Amen? I'm not going to let it happen. All right? So like I said, it's going to remind us of where we were. Our mistakes, our past, our failures. We all have them. Nobody in this building, from the youngest to the oldest, none of us have a past that's free of mistakes, that's free of failures, right? That's free of, wow, I shouldn't have done that. Free of bad decisions.
Bad brain.
Yeah, free of bad. We've all done that. Do you see what I'm saying? So the thing is, yeah, we own it. Yeah, I did that. But you know what? That's not who I am anymore. And 99% of the time, it's harder to convince yourself than it is to convince anybody else. We're our own worst critic. Amen? And we see that, and for some reason we can't forgive ourselves for it. But what did Yahushua say? He said, if you don't forgive, neither will my Father forgive you. But saints, here's what we got to remember. We got to learn how to not only forgive other people, but forgive ourselves for the things that we did, the things we've done. Those things are under the blood now, right? So it doesn't matter. It's just as if it didn't happen. Okay? So that's what I'm saying. We've got to learn. And once we remind ourselves of where we are now, and the place that we came from, well, let's do it this way. We remind ourselves of the place that we came from, and we look at ourselves where we are now. Let me ask you this question. Which one of us doesn't understand the word better now than we did back in the day. We got rid of the doctrinal glasses, right? And started looking at what does the Word say? Not what does my pastor say, or what does the mission statement say, or what does the statement of faith say. We got past all that stuff. Now it says, it's like what Yahushua said. He says, what doth the Scriptures say? So when I look into the Scriptures, it tells me that if I look into the perfect law of liberty, if I look into this Word, right, and I'm not only a hearer but a doer of this Word, right, when I walk away from it, I'm different than what I was when I went to go look at it. Because I'm not only hearing it, let's say if you just hear it, when you turn around and walk away, he straight away forgets what manner of man he was, and he goes on about his business. But if I put it into practice every day, if I put it into practice that, you know what, the Word says greater is he that's in me than he who's in the world, right? If I put it into practice that if I say that I know him, then I ought to walk just as he walked, right? That's in 1 John. If I put that into practice and I walk just as he walked, then guess what I am? I'm not only a hearer of the Word, but I'm a doer of the Word as well. And you would be surprised. Well, probably not this group, but what I'm saying is people would be surprised if we would just walk out our lives according to this book. We'd be in a whole lot better shape than what we are. And we'd be a lot more accepting of ourselves. We make mistakes every day, right? Scripture said that a righteous man falls how many? 7 times. Right? But what makes him different? He gets up, dusts himself off, repents, and he goes on his way and he keeps trying to do his best. So if I fail, I can't fail if I'm not trying. Does that make sense? If I fail, it means I'm trying to do something. When I don't fail, that means that I'm just sitting back on my laurels and I'm not growing. I'm not making any strides. I'm not trying to better myself. And really, in the end, that's what we're all trying to do, right? We're trying to be better than what we were. I'm trying to be better today than I was yesterday. You know? I'm trying to be better this Shabbat than I was last Shabbat. But it's an everyday thing. You know? And if I, like I said, I know that may sound contradictory, but if I don't fail, that means I'm not trying. Okay? And there's going to be setbacks in life. We're going to lose all kinds of things. Right? We're going to lose family. We're going to lose friends. We're going to lose jobs. We're going to lose, you name it. These things happen. But it's nothing to kick ourselves about. Right? We know who's in control here. And I'm a firm believer that things happen for a reason. So, although it may seem against us at the moment, it's actually probably for our best. You know? So we've got to know. We can't give up. We've got to do this every day. We take the battle. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes the battles they seem huge. But if we step back and we get them in perspective and take a look at the problem, right? Take a look at the problem next to the solution. Now this problem don't look so big anymore, does it? It looks giant when you ride up on it. But when we step back and we look at it from the Father's perspective, hey, He's got it under control. So best thing for me to do is do what? Put them hands up, right? I had to explain to somebody. Somebody asked me the other day, well, what's that all about? I said, what you talking about? I seen your new license plate. What that mean? What's that all about? I said, man, look. I said, it's simple. I said, a wise man told me one time that, I said, a wise man told me. A wise guy told me one time. He said that surrender takes the pain out of suffering. Okay? So when I put my hands up and I surrender the situation, that takes the monkey off of my back, right? And that says, hey, Master, save me. That's what Kepha did, right? That's what Paul, he said, Master, save me. He didn't have time to be worrying about all the other stuff. He said, I don't care if it makes me look foolish or not. Master, save me. But I told that person, I said, this is what this fella told me. I said, and I've seen it in my own life every day. I said, so here's the thing. If I got a situation that I know is too big for me, I can't take care of it on my own. I said, the only thing I can do is put my hands up and say, Father, I'll let you have it. Because I can't do it myself. And that person said, oh, man, that makes a lot of sense. I said, if y'all listen to me, you'd see I make a lot of sense sometimes. I said, y'all just want to fight with me all the time. But no, but that's what I told him. I said, I got to get out of the way, right? What did John the Immerser say? I must decrease that he may increase. Okay? So I got to fight this guy every day. I got to fight this little fat guy every day. Right? But it's because iron sharpens iron, right? It said, if I fight this guy every day, one day I'm going to overcome him. And when I overcome this flesh, then that means that the world and the devil ain't going to be nothing for me. Because I got to get over me first. Okay? And like I said, we go to war every day. And he didn't say if you notice he didn't say if you go to war. He said when you go to war. Just like what he told him. When you get into the land and you start bowing down to false Elohim and you start doing like the other nations. He didn't say if, he said when. He knows us better than we know ourselves. Well, Kepha said, oh, Master, I'll never deny you. Yahushua said, you out your mind. Before the mourner comes, you're going to do it 3 times. Don't you know that just made him sick when it happened? But he looked at the perfect law of liberty, but he walked away and he forgot what manner of man he was. So like I said, let's not let the flesh, because this is a bad, little Willie, right? He's a bad boy. And he will cause you some problems. And this flesh will hurt you like nobody else can. Because, what is it? What'd you tell that lady this morning? We put ourselves in those situations. It ain't no mystical, magical, whatever. She did it. Boy, I was proud of my wife this morning. She hurt that lady. She did. We had a JW come to the door this morning. And I was working on my lesson. And my wife was in her pajamas. And she went over there and opened up the door and spoke to that lady. And she told her straight up. But that woman right there, she did something I had never seen her do before in my life. And I was proud as punch. She ate that woman alive. But she didn't do it by belittling her or degrading her. She used Scripture. And everything that woman came up with, Kim had something to refute it. Well, what about this? What about this? What about this? Then she tried to use out of James, saying that the Father doesn't test us. What about Job? He handed Job right into Hasatan's hands. What about that? Twice. All right? But Kim told her, she said, ma'am, she said, we're our own worst enemy. And we put ourselves in places that Hasatan don't put us in. And that one was like, well, yeah, I guess. And she was second guessing herself. Kim was tearing her to pieces just with Scripture. And I was like, go ahead on, girl. When she closed the door, that lady was walking. When she turned around, I told her, I said, I'm proud of you. I'm so proud of you. Because that woman does not debate. She's not an apologetic. She doesn't do that. But I seen her be bold this morning. Not bold because we got, this or this or this, but bold because she's comfortable in the Word. And she's and she's comfortable in the way she's walking. And she told that lady, she said, ma'am, I have my salvation. She said, so I appreciate you coming by, but no thanks. I'm not buying what you're selling. I told her, I said, baby, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you. I was fit the bus this morning. I really, really was. But that's what I'm saying. We're going to come up against a lot of things. But we got to be ready. Right? Scripture say be ready in season and out of season. Even if you're reading your scriptures in your pajamas on Shabbat morning. Be ready. But like I said, no. Let's learn how to see things for what they are. And let's learn to call it like we see it. Right? When you know it's the flesh causing problems, acting up, being foolish, right? Call it out. Hey, I ain't listening to this today. Ain't happening. Not happening. All right, Chris, could you read verses 12 through 13, please?
Then thou shalt bring her home to thine house, and she shall shave her head and pare her nails, and she shall put the raiment of her captivity from off her, and shall remain in thy house, and bewail her father and her mother a full month. And after that thou shalt go in unto her, and be her husband, and she shall be thy wife.
Okay, so it talks about when you see among the captives a beautiful woman, and you have a desire for her, that you would have her for your wife. What's the first thing you got to do? First thing it says to do here is do what? Shave her head, pare her nails, take the raiment of her captivity off of her, right? And give her something new to wear, something different, all right? So in Eastern culture, we look at this and we're like, man, that's kind of rough. You know what I'm saying? Hey, you got to shave her head and everything. You know what I mean? That's what we think, man, that's kind of messed up. But in Eastern culture, it's very common that when you move from one position in life to another, you shave your hair off. Men and women alike. Okay? It's a symbol of sloughing off the life that you once had, right? And growing into the new one. Just like your new hair, your same hair, right? But it's going to grow in, right? Well, it's symbolic of growing into a new life. So with her, that's cutting off her old way of doing things, her old beliefs, her old holy days, her old Elohim, her old culture and manner of doing things. That's what that's all about. All right? So it wasn't to shame her or make her look bad or anything like that. It was a symbolic gesture of moving from one place in life to another. And we've talked about that. It talks about that in the scriptures too, right? Talks about the old man has to do what? He's got to pass away so that the new man can be born, right? So that he can come alive in Moshiach Yahushua. And this is a picture of the same thing. All right? Let's go to Numbers 6, 13 through 18. You say, Brother Shane, is this pattern in the scripture? Well, we're about to show you. Because it happened before.
And this is the law of the Nazarite. When the days of his separation are fulfilled, he shall be brought into the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. And he shall offer his offering unto Yahweh, one he lamb of the first year without blemish for a burnt offering, and one ewe lamb of the first year without blemish for a sin offering, and one ram without blemish for peace offerings. And a basket of unleavened bread, cakes of fine flour mingled with oil, and wafers of unleavened bread anointed with oil, and their meat offering and their drink offerings. And the priest shall bring them before Yahweh, and shall offer his sin offering and his burnt offering. And you shall offer the ram for a sacrifice of peace offerings unto Yahweh. With the basket of unleavened bread, the priest shall offer also his meat offering and his drink offering. And the Nazarite shall shave his head of his separation at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, and shall take the hair of the head of his separation and put it in the fire, which is under the sacrifice of the peace offerings.
All right. So, first of all, he brings all these sacrifices, right? What type of bread does he bring?
Unleavened.
He brings unleavened bread, right? So that bread has no what? No leavening, no guile, no lies, no. It's pure, right? It's not puffed up. It's a thing. It's a humility thing, right? And then what? After they put the lambs and all this stuff on, then they do what to him? They shave his head. And then that hair, because remember it said that couldn't a razor come on their head until the days of their vow were complete. So once that became complete, they shaved his head, and where did they put that hair? In the fire under the sacrifice. All right? So after the head, or once the head was shaved, that hair was put into the fire, or it was disposed of, and that was a sign that the old life, the one before the vow, was done or completed, and now he was beginning a new life, not as a Nazirite, not under a vow, right? But in thanksgiving for coming from where he was to where he is now. Does this make sense? All right? The old life has been left behind and the new life has begun. All right? Because that hair, it was used as a means of separation. Right? Because they couldn't drink wine, they couldn't eat grapes or raisins, or there was a lot of things they couldn't do when they were under the Nazirite vow. What?
How a person wears their hair helps to identify the culture that they're coming from.
Mm-hmm. So like I said, they shave it off to symbolize leaving one life behind and beginning a new one. Now, it also says that he would take off the garment of her captivity. Okay? So change her out of one set of clothing that maybe wasn't appropriate and put her in one that's a little more appropriate. Right? What I'm saying is one that's, maybe it's more modest, maybe it's, But anyway, they change her out of that. And then it says something very interesting. It says that that you will pare her nails. Now, when we hear that, what does that make us think? It makes us think to cut them. But that's not what it means at all. Remember, I've told y'all before, language evolves over time, right? To pare the nails in this understanding, if we look at the Hebrew word, it means to cause them to grow. So, to cause them to grow. When you go to the manicurist, what do they call it? I'm going to go get my nails done. The word here is asa, to do, right? So, what they would do is they would fix her nails and make them beautiful. And maybe even as we know in some Eastern cultures, they would maybe even tint them with henna or something like that, or paint them or whatever. Well, what they were doing was they would beautify them. Okay? So where are our hands? Our hands are always before us. Right? Our hands are right in front. Right? Hands speak of what? Service. The deeds that we do. So, just as the hands are ever before us, so are reminders of our past. What have we done? Right? So, what he would do is he would take these rough, scaly, maybe dirty, sinful hands, right? And when we take those hands and, they're, I'm going to use this term, it's the way I wrote it down, it just came out like this. When they are beautified by the palm olive of the new man, right? Because you remember old Madge? She said, you're soaking in it, in dishwashing liquid. Okay? But when they are beautified, right? And they become part of the new man, they become beautiful. And the deeds become lovely. and the service or the deeds that are done in the correct spirit. But we have to remember, we can grab things with the hands, but we also need to learn how to do what?
Let go.
Let go. Okay? We got to learn how to let go. Because there's a lot of us holding on to stuff from a long time ago that we need to walk away from. Right? Whether it's a cultural thing, or what, you know what I mean? We're not who we used to be. We have a heritage now. And the thing is that we need to learn how to embrace that heritage. We don't forget where we came from. I said that before. But we don't do the same things we used to do. We don't go the same places we used to go. Right? We don't eat the same things we used to eat. Or drink the same things we used to drink. We don't do that. Because we want these hands, we want them to be beautiful. And so this whole concept where it sounds here, the way it sounds, oh, you're going to take her and you're going to cut all her hair off and you're going to cut her nails off and you do it sounds horrible on this. It really doesn't sound very nice on the surface. But when we dig a little bit deeper and we look at the words and we, that's why we do it the way we do it, right? When we look at the pattern, scriptures say in Ecclesiastes 3:11, he makes all things beautiful in his time. That's what he does, though, isn't it? He makes all things beautiful in his time. All right? So like I said, we need to understand that that's what he wants to do with us. He wants to make us beautiful. And he wants his bride to be gorgeous and lovely and spotless. Right? That's what he wants. That's what he wants for his bride. But if we got things that we're holding on to, we got stains that we're holding on to. Sometimes you get a shirt, you have a favorite shirt, and you spill some stuff on it. And man, it stains it, and you're just like, man, I can't even wear this out in the public anymore. And you end up using it for a shop rag or something like that. Well, it's the same thing with us. He wants our garments to be clean. And he don't want us to have spots and blemishes and oil stains and spaghetti stains and stuff like that. He don't want us to have that. Right? He wants to look at us and say, oh, there's my beautiful bride right there. That's what he wants to. He wants to look at us and say, oh, isn't she gorgeous? Look at her. Spotless. Beautiful. This is what I intended for her. And that's what he wants from us. And the thing is, we make it so much harder than what it really is. Don't we?
Definitely.
It's just like Kim told that lady this morning. She said, well, in John 14:15, it says, if you love me, keep my commandments. So what commandments are you keeping? Then the lady said, I said, go ahead on, girl. But that's the thing. That's how we show him. I'm going to borrow this from Dad. He don't want you to go out and jump over the moon. All he's saying is, walk the way I walk. Do what I did. Right? Emulate me. And that shows me that you love me. Right? Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. All right, Chris, read verse 14, please.
And it shall be, if thou have no delight in her, then thou shalt let her go whither she will. But thou shalt not sell her at all for money. Thou shalt not make merchandise of her, because thou hast humbled her.
Okay, this seems contradictory, but we have to learn how to put things in the correct order. So it says that you'll let her bewail her father and her mother a full month, and after that you go into her, be her husband, and she'll be your wife. And then it says, and it shall be, if you have no delight in her, then you shall let her go whither she will. But you shall not sell her at all for money. You shall not make merchandise of her, because you've humbled her. Let's make sure that we understand. He's not saying take her for a test drive. Okay? I'm trying to be this, he's saying, if during that month that you're getting to know her, and she's bewailing her parents, if you decide maybe she's just not the one for me, then send her on her way. But don't humble her, right? Don't have your way with her and then kick her out in the street. That's not what he's saying. And when you read it at first blush, it kind of sounds like he's saying, well, go into her, become her husband and all, and then if you don't like her, throw her out. Not what he's saying at all. He's saying during that time, okay, she's not to be demeaned. And she, like I said, don't make merchandise of her. She's not a possession. She's not an object, right, for you just to go out and sell. All right? Don't do that. You can't do that just because you're not happy with her or you don't think that you're maybe, all right? And like I said, we got to remember that this is all before that month is over with. All right? Because if you were allowed to just do that and throw her out, well, then why would there even be a get? Why would there be a writ of divorcement if you could just throw her out? Do you see what I'm saying? That doesn't make sense. So using the pattern that we have, which talks about in this Parsha, talks about divorce, right? So if he was just to go in and be her husband and then throw her out because he decided he didn't like her, well, that doesn't make any sense. That makes Yahweh sound like he's a schizophrenic. You know what I mean? So anyway, like I said, we got to remember, everybody's got worth. Okay? You may tell yourself that you don't, but everybody does. Everybody has value. Chris, verses 15 through 17, please.
If a man have two wives, one beloved and another hated, and they have borne him children, both the beloved and the hated, and if the firstborn son be hers that was hated, then it shall be when he maketh his sons to inherit that which he hath, that he may not make the son of the beloved firstborn before the son of the hated, which is indeed the firstborn. But he shall acknowledge the son of the hated for the firstborn, by giving him a double portion of all that he hath, for he is the beginning of his strength. The right of the firstborn is his.
Okay. So, what are we talking about? We're talking about the duty of a father. Okay? The father is supposed to be a protector. He's supposed to be a leader. He's supposed to be, there's a lot of duties and obligations that we men as fathers have. Not only to our wives, but to our children and to our grandchildren. And, the scriptures say that a good man leaves an inheritance to his children and his children's children. Okay? So, our duty as fathers is to, like I said, take care of our families and provide for our families. Right? And how about this? This is going to make me vastly unpopular. But I'm going to say this because I have to, right? This also means being the spiritual leader of your household. Don't make your wife be the one that has to get everybody ready. She got to go to, take the kids to shul and do all the. No, sir. You need to step up. All right? You make sure that everybody's ready. You make sure that this, that the things that is going on. Right? You do that. You make sure everybody gets out of the house. Not your wife's responsibility. She has a part in it. But you are the leader of your house. So step into that role and walk in it. Okay? That's all I'm saying. Walk in that. All right? Here's another thing. The children have nothing to do with the status of your relationships, and they are not supposed to be punished for the accident of birth. All right? What am I saying? Your children are not the reason why you have problems.
Right.
Okay? Can I get an amen?
Amen.
Your children are not the reason you have problems. The reason you have problems is because of you. All right? Don't get mad at me. Okay? You talk to the one who wrote it. Don't get mad at me. But the reason why we have, like I said, the kids are not the problem. The children are not the reason. And that is why they are not to be punished for the mistakes that you've made. Own up to it. Own it. I own up to my mistakes. I got plenty of them. Right? So the biggest question I have for us, this is what I want us to think about. Because how many people say, oh, the reason why my marriage failed was because of the kids. Or we're just staying together for the kids. That's not good for them. Because you don't want them seeing y'all fighting and stuff all the time, do you? So what if we were, and this talks about, if he has one wife that's loved and one that's hated. Now, is he really saying one that's hated, despised, loathed? Okay, no. What he's saying is if you have one, it's kind of like, parents will always tell you they don't have a favorite child, but that's a lie. The only way you don't have a favorite child is if you only have one. Or none, but the point is, like I said, you have a favorite child, okay? Let's just be honest about it, all right? But what he's saying is, just because your favorite child is not the firstborn, it doesn't diminish his rights any. Just like if a man have two wives, and he loves one more than the other, he can't treat this one like a queen and treat this other one like she don't belong. Put her out on the backside out in a tool shed somewhere. You know what I mean? You can't do that. That's not right. That's not how things have been set up. But like I said, it's not the children's fault. All right? So my question to us is, Judah says that they are the chosen ones. Right? But here's my question for you. What if we were hated by Yahweh because we came from his unfaithful wife? Think about that. That's Israel. Israel was unfaithful. So what if Yahweh said, you know what? I don't love her anymore. So the children that I have with her, I don't care what happens to them. Where would we be? Think about that. Serious. Think about that. All right? Let's go to Romans 3:23.
For all have sinned and come short of the glory of Yahweh.
So, we've all sinned, right? Scripture says that we've all sinned and come short of the glory of Yahweh. Okay? So what if, because of that, we were hated and he just cast us off? We'd be in a bad place, wouldn't we? All right? It's just like he said in Genesis 32:10. I'm not worthy of the least of your mercies. Have any of us done anything that's worthy of the least of his mercies?
Nope.
No. So rightfully, he could have cast us off anytime he wanted to. But let me tell you what he did do. He took his firstborn, the Bechor, right? Because the scriptures tell us, before the earth ever was, I was there with him, as one brought up with him, or one brought up by him. Okay? So, who's the firstborn? Yahushua is. So we're the children of the adulterous bride. Yet, the firstborn, the oldest, the chosen, the Bechor, right? The beginning of Yahweh's strength, right? He came and drank the cup for us. So, do you see? It's backwards. We're backwards. Yes, we did wrong. Our forefathers, our ancestors, they did wrong. But the Father said, you know what? Y'all are still worth it. I love you a little less than I love my firstborn. Right? He didn't hate us. He just loves us a little less. That's where the concept comes from. And they did a big disservice when they translated it as hate. Because in our minds, that's a bad situation. Right? But the Father said, I love my son more than anything. I love y'all too. But y'all messed up. So what's going to happen is I got to send him to bring y'all back in line. But I love you that much. I don't hate you. I still love you. Right? Because we're all children born from sin. All of us are. Right? But the wonderful thing to remember is that his love superseded the price that we should have rightly paid. Let's go to Romans 8, verses 16 and 17.
Said 16 and 17, right?
16 and 17, yes, sir.
The Spirit itself beareth witness with our spirit that we are the children of Yahweh. And if children, then heirs, heirs of Yahweh, and joint heirs with the Messiah. If so be that we suffer with him, that we may also be glorified together.
So look where the love that he has for us put us. On par, just a little lower than his son. And made us joint heirs and rulers with him. Even though we don't deserve it. Now that's a love that none of us can understand. We love our family and our friends and our wives and our children and our pets, and we love a lot of things. But can't none of us love anything like the Father loves us. And I mean, it was all death, hell, and the grave is all that we deserve. Let's be honest. What we all deserve. But he saw something a little bit better in us. How, I don't know. But he did. So like I said, we have perhaps the best example of how to be a father, men. We have perhaps the best example that we could ever ask for. We don't have to do any further than look at this book right here. Remember how I've told y'all here over the past few weeks? Everything I need to know I can get from right here. And I can learn how to love. I may never have been loved before in my life, but I can learn how to love through the example that the Father set in his word. It's amazing. Do like Rebbe. It's amazing what's in this book. But you see what I'm saying? When Kim was pregnant with Chris, I was terrified to death. I was terrified to death. And she used to ask me, what's got you? I said, I don't know how to be a father. I don't know. Well, that's my point. When I told her, I don't know how to be a father. And I'm going to mess this up. I don't know what to do. And she said, well, we'll just do the best that we can. We'll do the best that we can. That's all anybody, especially with the first child. You don't know. Nobody knows. So let me tell y'all a story. One night, sometimes we pick up things when we're sleeping we don't get any time else, right? And I'm not saying this to make anybody feel bad or anything. I'm just telling you. Because this weighed on my mind and on my heart so much. And I fell asleep one night and I woke up in the middle of the night and I jumped up. It's kind of like Dad, where you're talking about, he can reverse the curse. I jumped up and I said, Kim, wake up, I got it, I figured it out. And she said, what are you talking about? And she's climbing out of the sleep like, what in the world is going on? Had this look of panic on her face. I woke her up out of a dead sleep. I said, I got it, I figured it out. She said, figured what out? I said, this whole dad thing. I figured it out. She said, okay, what is it? I said, I figured out how to be a dad. And she said, how? And I said, I'm going to do everything opposite of what was done to me, and I ought to be okay. I said, I'm going to do everything the exact opposite of how it was done for me, father-wise, and I'm going to be a good dad. And she said, sounds like we got it figured out. And that's what I did. Has everything been perfect, son? No. But that's part of having kids, right? So sometimes we got to take what we know and turn it upside down. And then we can actually get something from it. You know what I mean? But that's exactly what happened. I told Kim, I said, I don't know what to do. I have no clue. But then I said, I got it. I'll just do everything exactly the opposite of how my dad did things, and I ought to be okay. And that's what I tried to do. Like I said, I'm not talking bad about anything. I'm just saying that's what happened. That's just the truth of the matter. That's just the truth of the matter. So anyway, that kind of leads us into our next part. Go to 18 through 21, please, son.
If a man have a stubborn and rebellious son, which will not obey the voice of his father or the voice of his mother, and that when they have chastened him will not hearken unto them, then shall his father and his mother lay hold on him, and bring him out unto the elders of the city, and unto the gate of his place. And they shall say unto the elders of the city, This our son is stubborn and rebellious. He will not obey our voice. He is a glutton and a drunkard. And all the men of his city shall stone him with stones, that he die. So shalt thou put evil away from among you, and all Israel shall hear and fear.
Okay, so here's the thing. We see a whole lot of this in society today. A whole lot of this, okay? Because children are left to their own devices. All right? There's no discipline in the home. There's no love in the home.
Reason.
There's no, you got to raise a child, right? Is that what it says? Raise up a child in the way that they should go, and when they get old, they'll not depart from it. Okay? So, these children are left to their own devices. There's no discipline. There's no correction. Parents can't be bothered. So they take the kid and they plunk them down in front of a TV or give them a tablet or whatever, a cell phone, and that's the babysitter. So mama can run off and go do what she wants to do or what, but you've got generations of children that didn't have any upbringing that are now bringing up other generations of children who have even less upbringing, who are now bringing up another generation of children who have even less upbringing than they had. Go to 2 Timothy 3, verses 1 through 5, Chris.
This know also, that in the last days perilous times shall come. For men shall be lovers of their own selves, covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, without natural affection, truce breakers, false accusers, incontinent, fierce, despisers of those that are good, traitors, high-minded, lovers of pleasures more than lovers of Yahweh, having a form of reverence, but denying the power thereof. From such turn away.
Okay, So here's the thing. People, especially folks, like I said, after all, folks don't have any natural affection. We tend to think of natural affection as as a relationship type of a situation. But that also means they don't have any natural affection for those that they should love, their own children, but they treat them terribly. Right? And one of the worst things that these parents do is they just let the kids do what they want. Okay? And these kids, really, they're just a commodity. Y'all know what I mean by that? Government will pay you more if you have more kids you got, the bigger your check is. A lot of people that don't want to work. All right? Sir?
Just don't burn that daddy around.
Yeah. All right? So the thing is, the biggest thing, like I said, that's lacking is discipline. We don't discipline children anymore. I'm not talking about beating them. I'm not talking, you know what I mean? Never lay a hand on a child when you're angry. Because they can make you angry. Right? But when we don't discipline our children, that is kind of like what Ray told you. Okay? When we don't discipline our children, all right, with love, make sure we get that in there. When we don't lovingly discipline our children, we're telling them that they're not worth our time. All right? And we're also letting them know that they're not worthy of our attention. Okay?
Yep.
And the breakdown of the family is not only felt here, but here and here and here and further down the line than what we think. How many people that are in prison right now would tell you, if my parents had just loved me, or if they had done this, or if they had done that. There's a lot of kids out there that, just like me, they don't know what to do. Scriptures tell us that a child left on its own is what? That it's going to bring a mother to open shame. A child left to their own devices will bring a mother to shame. Children need guidance. We are the children of Yahweh. And guess what we need? Guidance. Every day. I do. I don't know about y'all, but I need it. Because if I'm left to my own devices, I'm going to make a mess out of stuff. So I got to have him every day. Right? I can't be preoccupied with myself. I got to have him every day. Go to Hebrews 12 and 5.
And ye have forgotten the exhortation which speaketh unto you as unto children. My son, despise not thou the chastening of Yahweh, nor faint when thou art rebuked of him.
So,
Do you want to do the next verse too?
yeah, you can.
For whom Yahweh loveth, he chasteneth, and scourgeth every son whom he receiveth.
All right. So the thing is, he chastens us, which was another thing that lady said this morning, right? That he doesn't punish anybody. I beg to differ with you. The scriptures right here, it just says that who he loves, he does what? He chastens. Right? And he scourges them as sons. Now you know what scourging is, right? He whoops them. But he does it because he cares and he doesn't want us to make bad decisions. It's the same reason why we need to discipline our children. We lovingly discipline them so that they don't make bad decisions later on. A lot of the things that we did, we make sure, hey, don't do this, because I know where it can take you. You know. But it's like Ray said. He thanked you, didn't he, Dad? He thanked you for the whoopings that he got. Because it made him a better person. And that's the thing. This kid in this story here in the Parsha, he's disobedient to his parents, and he just does what he wants to, and he's a glutton and a drunkard, and he ain't worth nothing. You know what I mean? He's just rotten. It says right there, it's like what we talked about last time. Remember when we said that when I think it was last week when we was talking about if you see something go on, 2 or 3 witnesses, when they bring them before the judges, and when sentence is cast, who's the first one to lay hands on? The witnesses, right? Well, in this case, it's the parents. But the problem is, they're not without fault here either. You see? So it brings it a little more into focus. If we had done a better job, we wouldn't be where we're at right now. This wouldn't be happening. And our son wouldn't be the way he is. Because, But it's all about the breakdown of the family, and the family is important. The family is incredibly important. Because as children, we learn things not only from our fathers, but from our mothers as well. Right? We learn. And that's the thing. We have to remember, we're all children. Right? Barring the physical family, we're all children of Yahweh. And in order to walk right and to do the right thing, we've got to be taught by Him. And sometimes those lessons aren't comfortable. But they help us grow. And they keep us on the right track. All right, so if you would, in chapter 21, could you read verses 22 and 23 for us, please?
And if a man have committed a sin worthy of death, and he be put to death, and thou hang him on a tree, his body shall not remain all night upon the tree, but thou shalt in any ways bury him that day. For he that is hanged is accursed of Elohim, that thy land be not defiled, which Yahweh the Elohim giveth thee for an inheritance.
All right, so have you ever wondered, we heard that before, right? That cursed is he who hangs upon a tree, you know what I mean? But the question is, the question is, why is that the case? Well, that's because the common thought is that if they're suspended, right, on the stake or on the tree, all right, they're suspended between heaven and earth, and then they're seen to be rejected by both because they're not fully in one or fully in the other. And this is the very reason why Yahushua had to be taken down before the sunset, because the first thing was his body had to be accepted by the earth first, right? Because he had to go down into the belly of the earth for 3 days. And then he would be accepted by heaven second. But the thing is, if he had remained there, then he couldn't have been accepted by either. So that's the idea. I always wondered, where that came from, why the whole he who hangs on the tree is cursed, you know what I mean? But the idea is that because he was not being accepted by either of those things, either heaven or earth. But like I said, in the case of Yahushua, he was accepted into the belly of the earth first, and then into heaven again after a certain amount of time. All right, chapter 22, verses 1 through 4, please.
He that is wounded in the stones or have his privy member cut off shall not enter into the congregation.
22.
22?
Not hard to do.
If thou shalt not see thy brother's ox or his sheep go astray, and hide thyself from them, thou shalt in any case bring them again unto thy brother. And if thy brother be not nigh unto thee, or if thou know him not, then thou shalt bring it unto thine own house, and it shall be with thee until thy brother seek after it, and thou shalt restore it to him again.
In like manner shalt thou do with his ass, and so shalt thou do with his raiment, and with all lost thing of thy brothers, which he has lost, and thou hast found, shalt thou do likewise. Thou mayest not hide thyself. Thou shalt not see thy brother's ass or his ox fall down by the way, and hide thyself from them. Thou shalt surely help him to lift them up again.
All right. So just as we're not to see his livestock fall and not help them up, we're actually need to be taking care of each other. You know, and the thing is, we see the pattern over and over and over and over and over again, right? Which of you would have, you took your bath and you done got into bed, and your friend comes by and he wants to borrow some loaves of bread because he's got some visitors coming, and it even goes further beyond that kind of stuff. Cain asked Yahweh, he said, am I my brother's keeper? Well, yes, you are. We all need to be taking care of each other, whether that means that we need to be there to help each other financially or physically or spiritually, emotionally. However, that's what we're here to do, right? That's what Paul was talking about. He said that we are to edify the brethren, right? What does edify mean? To build up, so when you are weak, don't be afraid, to ask for some help. Don't be afraid to ask for support, because, that steps over. All of us have a little bit of pride, right? But don't be so proud that you can't accept what somebody's trying to give you. We know that pride is the master sin. There's a lot of things that come from being too proud. But like I said, when we get into a situation, it's just like what we were talking about before. There are some times when your brain just is telling you all kinds of stuff and you just can't, you get stuck in a loop and you can't break out of it. Sometimes you need somebody poking you on the forehead saying, bad brain, shut up. Sometimes that's what you need. You got to get out of that loop. And like I said, there are times when we need each other. I mean, we need each other all the time. Let's go to Hebrews 10, 24 and 25.
And let us consider one another to provoke unto love and to good works, not forsaking the assembly of ourselves together, as the manner of some is, but exhorting one another, and so much the more as ye see the day approaching.
Right, exhorting one another, right? And he said, so much the more as you see the day approaching. Like I said earlier, it ain't getting no easier, and it sure ain't getting no better out there. And when it all comes down to it, all we have, honestly, is each other. That's all we have. So, that's what he's talking about. Don't forsake the assembling of yourselves together. Learn to lean on each other, learn to rely on each other. And that's the thing. If a brother or sister comes to you and they ask for your help, what's he say? He said, don't close your hand, but open your hand wide. Now, whether that's financially or that's just giving an ear to let somebody listen, maybe you got a shoulder that they can cry on. That may be what they need. But it's up to each one of us individually to make ourselves accessible to each other. Because, Tommy may need something that I can help him with. Vicky may need something that Kim can help her with, or, Alicia may need something that Vicky can help her with. It doesn't matter. What does matter is that we're there for each other and that we support each other, and as the days go on and as we continue in this walk, things are going to get worse. That's what he's saying. So as we see the day approaching, we need to be there to support each other even more, you know? So like I said, if we see something, you know, or if we find something of our brothers or our sisters, or the idea is that we don't hide ourselves from them because they're looking for something. And that thing that they're looking for, you may just have. Does that make sense? All right, let's go to verses 9 through 11, Chris.
Thou shalt not sow thy vineyard with diverse seed, lest the fruit of thy seed which thou hast sown and the fruit of thy vineyard be defiled. Thou shalt not plow with an ox and an ass together. Thou shalt not wear a garment of diverse sorts, as of woolen and linen together.
All right, so we talked a couple of weeks ago about Shadnez. Y'all remember what Shadnez is? Okay, some of y'all do, some of y'all don't. Shadnez is the concept of mixing, unlawful mixing, okay? Like sowing two different kinds of seed in the same field, or sewing a garment with both wool and linen, or, you know, plowing with two different types of animals. That's called Shatnez, okay? And the idea is that when you allow things to mix, right? When you mix things, right? You end up with a product that's not wholly one thing or another. And that cornalope, exactly, which we had a neighbor that brought us some corn one time. All right. And he was doing he was bringing it to everybody in the neighborhood. But when we cooked it, we were like, man, this corn smells really weird, you know? Well, we went ahead and ate it with supper. And Kim said, this corn doesn't taste right. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. It doesn't. She said, it tastes like melon is what it tastes like. So it was corn, but it tasted like melon. And I was like, it's really strange, you know? So I don't remember what we did. I think we may have tossed the rest of it. But the guy that gave it to us a couple of days later, he came by to get his 5-gallon bucket back. And he asked me, hey, how'd you enjoy that corn? And I said, well, John, I said, we appreciate the thought. I said, but there was something off about it. He said, well, what do you mean? I said, man, it didn't taste right. He said, well, what did it taste like? I said, well, it tasted like melon. Honestly, I said, it was the weirdest thing. I said, we appreciate your generosity, but it just didn't taste right. And he started laughing. He said, well, he said, you know, he said, that makes perfect sense. And I said, well, why is that? He said, because I planted it right next to my cantaloupes. I planted the corn and the cantaloupes in the same, so they had been cross-pollinated by the bees, and therefore we ended up with corn that tasted like cantaloupe. So that's what we were talking about, cornalope. But it was very defiled. There was nothing you could do to make it taste good. But see, that's the thing. When we mix stuff, when you mix seed, right, you get something that is not what it's supposed to be. We got corn, but it didn't taste like corn. It looked like it, but it tasted like something all completely different. All right. When you mix fabrics, okay, ma'am, fibers, my bad. When you mix these things, you're not getting a garment that's whole. Do you see what I'm saying? Because one fabric or one fiber may shrink more than the other, right? And what that does is that messes with the integrity of the garment. So it may as well just be like you're not even got it at all, you know? It may shrink up so much that it tears the stitches out, you know? Who knows? And when you plow with an ox and an ass at the same time, we call that what? We call that being unequally yoked, right? And so if you plowing with both of them guys, what are you probably going to end up doing? You're probably going to end up going in circles, right? Because that ox is going to pull. But that mule, he may dig his heels in and he ain't going no place. So what are you going to end up doing? You're going to end up going around that mountain, around that little schoolhouse. And how many times are you going to do that? You know? So let's go to 2 Corinthians 6, verses 14 and 15.
Be ye not unequally yoked together with unbelievers. For what fellowship hath righteousness with unrighteousness? And what communion hath light with darkness? And what concord hath the Messiah with Belial? Or what part hath he that believeth with an infidel?
Okay, so that's the thing. We've seen for years and years and years things that are out in the world. Within a certain amount of time, guess where they end up? In the church. Because the church wants to be, they think, well, if we're more like the world, we'll bring in more people. But that's not what happens. What ends up happening is the church ends up becoming more like the world than the world ends up becoming like the church. Does that make sense? That's the pattern. That's what we see. That's where we talk about the weaker bringing down the stronger, right? So the church sees, oh, well, they're doing this, they're doing this, they're doing this, right? And that's going to bring people in. That's what people want. So they end up doing that thing, whatever it may be. And what it ends up doing is bringing them further away from the message, bringing them further away from the truth, and more into a worldly mindset. And before long, you've got a very worldly church that doesn't look anything like what it used to look like. How many, let's ask this question, how many congregations, I don't like to use the word church, how many congregations do we know that started out one way, but are now so progressive, I use that with big air quotes, so progressive and so worldly that you can't tell the difference if you're walking into a worship center or a nightclub. They got the disco ball and they got the laser lights and they got the fog machines and they got all this stuff to appeal to the senses, but they got no word. They may not even crack the Bible open. That pastor may have some stuff that he heard off of Dr. Phil, and he'd go half an hour on that, and then the rest of the time they're eating popcorn or watching movies and dancing around and stuff. I mean, that's what you see, right? There's an entire church that basically shuts down for the whole month of September, and all they do is run movies and give out popcorn, and it's to draw people. Oh, we're going to draw people in. You know, we're going to draw all these people in. And what they end up doing is running movies and spending a bunch of money on popcorn, and they don't bring anybody. It's just like what Yahushua said when he was talking to the disciples. He said, do you think they're here for the message? No, they're here for the food. They don't care anything about, you know what I'm saying? Y'all know what I'm talking about, right? That's what the Messiah told them. He said, they're not here for the word. They're here for the food. And a lot of these, like I said, they say, oh, well, we'll bring them in. No, you won't. What you're going to end up doing is end up edging yourself more out towards where they're at. Instead of bringing the people in, you're pushing the people out. And that's the problem. You know what I mean? When we get away from the gospel, when we get away from the word, when we get away from thou shalt and thou shalt not, when we get away from that, right? When we get away from the blood of Yahushua, when we get away from him and him impaled, we end up with a bunch of worldly junk that ain't no good, and it ain't doing anybody any good, right? And then what happens? You get people who are confused, right? And you ain't saving nobody. It's just like I don't understand churches that have revival after revival after revival after revival, and nobody gets saved. And not one person is added to the church. But they bring in this preacher and that preacher, and this apostle and this prophet and blah blah blah. And the latter end is worse than the first. To kind of borrow from the scripture. So that's what we have to be very careful. And it may seem innocuous. It may not seem like a big deal. But the more mixing that you do, the more muddled the end product is going to come out. Okay? The more muddled the end product is going to come out. And the issue, like I said, the issue is this word is very plain, written right here in black and white. But when we start adding interpretations and this twist and, oh, well, this one said, well, so-and-so in his book, and you start adding all this junk into it. Oh, I saw this thing on Oprah and, you know, and before you know it, you got something that doesn't even look like what it's supposed to be. What do you say, Dad? At the very least, it ain't what it's supposed to be, and what it was created to be. Okay? So that's why we got to be careful about that. People bring all kinds of stuff into the church house. Everything from angel worship to divination to just all kinds of things that has no place in his house. But they bring it in, you know, the prayer of Jabez and the this and the that and all this kind of stuff. But again, none of that stuff, like I said, angel worship and all that kind of, none of that stuff has any place in his house. Right? What did he say? He said, I will not share my glory with another. Right? Angels are created beings just like us. A little higher than we are. But what I'm saying is, you know, they're not worthy to be worshiped. And you look at it in Revelations where it said that when John saw the angel, said he fell down at his feet as dead. And the angel told him, he said, man, get up. You know what I mean? Don't fall down at my feet. Get up. So the point is, we got to be careful with what we allow in the door. This also extends to your home. Okay? It also extends to your home. Be bringing all kinds of stuff into the house, because if you do that, scriptures say that you become an accursed thing just like it. So be careful of what you allow to mix in with your worship and into your home. I used to know some people that pastor's wife would not allow a Christmas tree in the sanctuary of the church, but had the biggest one you could find in their house. Yeah, it didn't even fit, actually. So the question is, if you won't allow it in the sanctuary, why in the world would you allow it in your home? That's a question. That's a good question, I think. Okay. So if you won't allow it in the sanctuary, why would you allow it in your house? Doesn't make any sense. Verse 12, it talks about, we're talking about CTO here. Talk about you should put fringes on the four quarters of your vestment with which you cover yourself. Okay. So we know, we were told, we were commanded far earlier, hey, put these on the four corners of your garment so that you don't go out chasing other deities. And I don't like to use the word to use it, but don't go a whoring, right? Waiting for the wagon train to come through. Yeehaw. But that's what he said. Don't, you see these things, and it's to keep you from going and chasing other deities, right? We keep our eyes on the prize. Verses 13 through 19, this talks about a man taking his wife and he doesn't care for her and he brings all kinds of accusations against her, and he goes before the judges and says, oh, I didn't, she wasn't a maiden when we got married. And her father brings the tokens of her virginity with her. And to me, that's just gross, but hey, yeah. I mean, but it is, yeah, I mean, it's proof. So, and then when he's proven wrong, he basically has to pay for the false report that he brought. Well, that reminds me of another false report that was brought, right? You had all these spies went into the land and they came back. 10 of the 12 came back with a bad report, an evil report. But we see what happened to them later on because of that report. And then they didn't want to listen because Yahweh told them to go up. And then they decided, well, we're going to do it on our own time. They ended up having to pay for that, didn't they? Said that they chased them all the way to Hermon, I think. But they run them out of there. So if he brought this report and he was found to be lying, he basically had to pay a fine. And it was a pretty stiff one, too. How much did he have to pay? That was 100, right? Yeah. That was a bunch of money. That's a bunch of money. So, like I said, we have to be careful of the report that we bring, right? We bring an evil report and then it gets found out that it's not true. Well, then that makes us a liar, right? And so, again, we got to remember that there is a cost for bringing a false report. That's what the 10 Commandments said, right? Not to bear false witness, right? When they brought Yahushua before Pilate, Caiaphas and them had went and bought 2 false witnesses. And them false witnesses, they couldn't even agree with each other. And don't you know it made them look stupid? But the thing is, like I said, we don't need to be bringing a false report. If we say that we're doing, you remember we talked about this last week. If we say that we're doing something, we better be found doing it. If we say we're not doing something, we better not be found doing it, right? If we tell this person that you can't do such and such, but then we're sneaking and hiding and poking around and doing it ourselves, then that not only brings a reproach on us, but it brings a reproach on the one that we serve. Brings a reproach on the word, right? So the thing is, let's not bring a false report. Let's be truthful in all that we do. And then verses 22 through 29 talks about the cost and the things for different types of sexual sins. Mainly, if a guy finds a woman in a field or she's betrothed to somebody, she's engaged, and he takes her for himself, or if she's in the city and she doesn't cry out, there's a lot of things there. Like I said, we're not going to dig real deep into them. But again, it goes along with what I've been saying for weeks now. Whatever we do, there is a price to be paid for it. Whether it's a good thing, right? Or it's an evil thing. There's a reward going to come from. There's a price to be paid. Would you rather do good things and receive a good payment? Or would you rather do evil things and be made to pay for it? Right? Now what Samuel said? He said to obey is better than sacrifice. So why don't we just do the right thing first? Okay? And not have to bring a sacrifice, not have it cost us anything in the long run. May cost us family and friends and stuff like that right now. but in the long run, we stand to benefit from it. Everything that we lose here in this life, we stand to gain 30, 60, 100-fold in the life to come. So better to do the right thing now. Amen. And then have to pay for it later. Chapter 23, verses 1 through 8, it talks about different restrictions for those who can enter into the congregation of Yahweh. This is where it talks about somebody who's wounded in the stones, somebody who is illegitimate. Also talks about certain groups of people, Ammonites and Moabites. Talks about Balaam, the things that he did. Talks about Edomites even, you know. And the scripture says that we're not to abhor an Edomite, because after all, they are our brothers. Okay. Now, when I talk about an Edomite, who am I talking about? Yeah. You're talking about Muslims. We're not to hate them. They're wrong. Okay. But we're not to hate them. We're not to despise them. Now, the scriptures say that they have a perpetual hatred against us, and that's okay. But we're not to return the favor. Right? Like what I like to say, right, Dad? I'm gonna heap burning coals on their head. I'm gonna treat them as good as I can. Because I mean, they've done nothing to me personally. You know. But the thing is, the scriptures say that I'm supposed to love my enemies. And I'm supposed to pray for those who despitefully use me. Now, like I said, Edom, as much as they hate us, they're still our brother. And the Bible says we're not to abhor them. Same thing with Egyptians, right? I think it's just talking about strangers in general, you know, because we were strangers in a strange land. So we should be welcoming to strangers as well. Let's see. You know, and eventually it does say that there are some, you know, that are going to make it into the congregation. It's just going to take so much time for them to get there. You know, so many generations have to pass. Sir? The 10th generation, exactly. But that doesn't mean that there's no hope for. And verses 9 through 14 talks about when the army goes forth to enemies, and keep yourself from every wicked thing. That kind of reminds me of old Achan, right? He saw that silver and that gold and that fine Babylonish garment. All right. But I don't know. I think it's just the word Babylonish that makes it sound funny. But the thing is, there are certain things there that are not for us. Amen. And those are things that we need to leave alone. All right. But it also talks about if there's a person that's unclean because of something that happens during the night, he's got to go outside the camp. Okay. But he can give himself a bath, and when evening comes, he can come back. Talks about when you go out on the end of your sword, you got to have a paddle on there, right? So that when you ease thyself abroad, you can cover it back up. And it all really comes down to the fact that we need to learn how to keep our camp clean. It talks about our physical camp, our homes, our property, our life, you know, but it talks about this camp too, right? Talks about this body and this spirit, and we need to learn how to keep that clean too, right? Because when we go to mixing and we go to letting things in there that dirty up the camp, the reason why they had to have the paddles and stuff, and, you know, because it said that Yahweh Elohim walks through the midst of the camp. So we've got to know how to keep our camp clean so that he can walk among us. Amen. We need to keep our camp clean because he's walking through and he's seeing what he can see. Right? But if it's dirty and it's nasty, he ain't going to want to be there. And if your camp is filthy and disgusting, the ruck ain't going to want to be there. You know what I'm saying? So we got to know, we got to keep our camp clean, literally and figuratively. We got to do them both. If we got stuff that we're hiding in here, secret sin that we're hiding, guess what? Your camp ain't clean. And don't think that you're going to feel his presence if your camp ain't clean, because he's not coming. He's not going to visit. Would y'all agree with that? So verses 15 through 20, chapter 25 or 23, it talks about what's acceptable to pay a vow and lending to other folks. Okay. So we got to know that if we make a vow, what we offer has to be perfect. Now, we don't go and we don't offer a lamb and a goat and a turtle dove and all that stuff anymore, right? It talks about the calves of our lips. So when we make a vow, those words coming out of our mouth, that's the calves of our lips, right? And the sacrifices of praise that we give, those are the calves of our lips. But if we don't mean it, and if those sacrifices that we're giving, if they're tainted, if they're dirty because we're not keeping the camp clean, they're not going to be acceptable. Offer it to your governor and see if he be pleased with you, right? So if we're giving unclean worship, right? He said that this people worship me with their mouth, right? They worship me with their lips, but their heart is where? It's way out on the back 40. It's far from me. I don't even know who these people are. And they're giving me empty praise, right? They're praising me in vain because it's no good. All right. So the scriptures say that when we make a vow, do not defer to pay it. Right? It said it's better that you not make it than make it and don't pay. Because he's not going to suffer fools, as it says. All right? When we make a vow, it's just like that Nazarite. When we make a vow, it's a deadly important thing. If we promise the Father we're going to do something, well, by golly, we better do it. Amen? We better do it. And if we lend to each other, we're not supposed to lend on interest. Okay? Brother Tommy borrowed $5 from me today. Tomorrow you're going to pay me $25. That's not what we're supposed to do. I lend Brother Tommy $5, chances are I'm going to forget about it before the day is up. But the point is, like I said, we're not supposed to do that. Again, that all goes back to the whole taking care of our brothers and sisters and looking out for each other, making sure that you have what you need. It's the same thing with, even something as simple as giving somebody a ride. Give somebody a ride to get them to shul. I'll make 25 trips if I have to get them in here. Just come on. I told a fella yesterday, I said, look, I'm tired of inviting you. I said, I've invited you 4 times. You ain't showed up yet. I said, I'm done with you. Oh, come on, Squeak. Don't be that way, man. Come on, don't be that way. I got a lot of things going on. I said, I understand. I said, but I'm tired of it. I said, I'm done. I'm done. No. Don't do me like that. Don't do me like that. I said, I'm just picking with you, brother. I wouldn't do you that way. I'm going to keep inviting you every week until you show up. But that's the thing. Remember, if we lend something to somebody, let's just lend it. Okay? And then 21 through 23, again, it goes to talking about, um, again, like I said, making vows and stuff like that. Um, and then 24 and 25, it talks about when you go to your neighbor, when you're coming through your neighbor's vineyard, if you see some grapes on the thing, you can eat them. Or if you're going through the cornfield, now in this case, it wouldn't have been corn. Certainly wouldn't have been cornalope, but but it would have been grain, like wheat fields or whatever. If you're going through the field and there's some left, you can have some. But the thing is, don't overstep your bounds, right? Don't go out there gleaning it and putting it in a bag and taking off with it. Leave some for somebody else, because you ain't the only one that needs something. You know what I mean? There's somebody else out there. So again, this goes back to the whole thing of looking out for each other, right? Providing for each other, having each other's back, supporting each other. This is, again, as we see the day approaching, we need to be there for each other more than ever. More than ever. We've got to be there, to back each other up. Because like I said, the world's going to back themselves up, right? So as for us, we need to be able to back each other up. Chapter 24, verses 1 through 4 talks about divorce. And it talks about if a man marries a woman and then he divorces her, she gets married again, that the first husband can't go back and marry the wife over again. Okay. I've seen people do that kind of stuff. They got married 2 and 3 and 4 times. Leave and get remarried and then go married, ma'am. Yeah. And she give them hey, you didn't make it the first or second time. Why go for a third or fourth, right? And then 5 through 13, you got different rulings for different types of things. Pledges, people who are kidnappers, stuff for lending, what to do with leprosy. And remember, what is Moses doing here? He knows he's fixing to go off the scene very, very shortly. So he's doing what? He's refreshing people's memories, right? He's reminding them. Because if we look at it, there are some people in the congregation now that were not there, right? There have been several generations, or, there's been, newer people. The older generation died away when a lot of this stuff was set down. So for the newer generation, they need to be taught. And it's just like us. There's never a time. Well, except for, I guess, when we get to heaven. But while we're on this earth, there's never going to be a time that we know everything. Okay? We can't. It's impossible. Right? But we don't need to be walking around with a chest swole up and puffed up, looking like old puff, like we know everything. We got all sewed up in a bag. All right? We don't know everything. So we need to remain teachable, right? We need to be in a constant state of learning, all right? Because, like I said, there's a lot of stuff we don't know. There's a lot of stuff we don't know. And there's a lot of stuff that when we get there, he's going to say, hey, look, I appreciate the fact that you tried. It really needed to be done like this, but you made an effort. You know what I'm saying? And nobody's going to fault you for that. You tried. All right. But like I said, we need to remain teachable. We need to, we definitely need to be humble, because if we're not humble, we're not going to accept the teaching. You know what I'm saying? So we need to remain teachable. 14 and 15 talks about when you pay your servants. And it basically says when a person works for you, you pay them at the end of the day, because they're worthy of the work that they did. It's just like the 11th hour worker. It doesn't matter whether you've been in the field for 11 hours, 12 hours, or 1 hour, or 10 minutes. All right? Everybody gets the same pay. But the problem is we're supposed to be paid at the end of the day, not every 2 weeks or every month or whatever. But that's how it talks about paying servants. 16 through 18 talks about right rulings and not perverting judgment, not perverting justice. Okay. And the thing is here, we can't, a child cannot be put to death for the sins of the parent. That's against Torah. All right. And the thing is, the fathers can't be put to death for their children. Although any of us would gladly, I'm sure, gladly lay their lives down for their children. You know what I mean? If the parent sins, then it's on the parent. If the child sins, it's on the child. And everybody's got to stand on their own 2 feet. You know, when we appear before him, and if he tells us, hey, look, you didn't do X, Y, Z, I can't say, well, Dad didn't show me I was supposed to do that. It's not his responsibility. It's on me. I'm an adult, right? So I need to be searching it out. I need to be learning. I need to be listening, right? I need to be looking diligently. Do like the Bereans, right? I need to be searching to see if it be so. All right. But when it comes to it, when we all have to stand before him, you're not going to be able to put it on anybody else. And by that same token, you're not going to ride in on anybody else's coattail. I can't ride in on mama's coattail. You know, and you can't ride in on mine. If I'm blessed enough to make it there, you can't ride in on mine. See, the thing is, like I said, we're all responsible for ourselves. And again, it talks about not perverting justice. We've talked about that several times in the last few parshas. Okay. When we rule, or when you rule, or when you set down a verdict, it has to be how? According to what I feel? No, according to what the word says. Because the scriptures say that when we stand before him and he opens the books, is he judging after the sight of his eyes or the hearing of his ears? No, not according to what it says in Isaiah. He's not. It says that he opened the books. So he's going to be judging from where? Out of here, out of the Torah. He's going to be judging out of the scriptures, not out of what he thinks or how he feels or any of that kind of stuff. So we got to make sure we know this. And we get it down in us, right, Dad? We got to get it down in us, and it's got to become part of us so that we can talk to people and we don't have to stand around, oh, well, man, I wish I remember what he said. Let me go get on YouTube right quick and see if we can't. You ain't got time for that. You got to know it. You got to know that you know that you know that you know. All right. And then verses 19 through 22, again, talking about caring for our brethren who are less fortunate than we are. As many times as it's been mentioned just in Deuteronomy, I would say that taking care of those less fortunate is a pretty big deal to the Father. Wouldn't y'all say? He has mentioned it over and over and over and over. Do not forget the widow or the orphan or the stranger or the Levite, right? That are within your gates. So again, we've talked about several times making provision for those less fortunate, helping those out. That's how we build each other up, is being there and providing where there is no other way. The Father can make a lot of stuff happen. I mean, he brought 3 days worth of quail out of the water. All right. He brought it. He can provide it. But sometimes it's up to you and I. Okay. Sometimes it's it's up to you and I. Sometimes we're what he uses to bless someone else. And we have to be open and willing to do that. He said, don't give an evil eye. And open your hand wide. Lend him sufficient to his need. And don't worry about getting repaid. Because the Father will repay you for what you've done. All right. Chapter 25, verses 1 through 3 talks about, basically let the punishment fit the crime. Okay. It talks about getting 40 stripes, so but it also says that whatever number that the judges assay for the offense, but 40 was the maximum, right? So you couldn't receive more than 40 stripes. But again, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, hand for a hand. You got to let the punishment has to fit the crime. Don't give a guy 20 years in jail because he had a couple of joints in his pocket. You know what I'm saying? An ounce of catnip, exactly. So we got to make sure, like I said, because eventually he said that we're all going to be judges and we're going to be rulers. So when it comes down to it, we have to make sure that we know what the rules are. We got to know what the law is. All right. Verses 5 through 10. Now there's been a lot of discrepancy about this. Verses 5 through 10, this is where it talks about if brethren dwell together and one of them dies before he can bring forth children, that the brother is supposed to raise up children in his brother's name. Okay, and this is what happened with Onan. I'm sure we all know who Onan was. And a lot of people want to say that the reason why he was struck down was because he spilled his seed on the ground, but that wasn't what it was. It was the fact that he wouldn't bring up children to his brother's name. And that's the reason why he was struck down. Okay, well, yeah, I'm just saying, that's the reason why. It wasn't because of self-gratification. It was because he went against what the scripture said to do. And in open defilement. He simply did it because he didn't want to. That's in Genesis 38, verses 8 through 10. And then verse 13 through 16 of this Parsha, and this is where we're going to end it out. It talks about you shall not have in your bag diverse weights. Okay? A great and a small. You shall not have in your house diverse measures. All right? You shall have a perfect and just weight, a perfect and just measure shall you have, that your days may be lengthened on the land which Yahweh your Elohim gives you. Okay? In the book of Proverbs, it says that a just hin and a just ephah, right? Those are a delight to him. All right? Because that shows that you're being upright in your dealings. It's not like what they said, when will the Sabbath be over? So that we can make the shekel small and the ephah greater, whichever way it is. I always get that kind of, but it's about being upright. Being upright in your dealings, not only with your Israelite brethren, right? But with everybody. Be above reproach. Remember last week we talked about there was the word that was used it was tamim, right? Which means what? Clean. But it also means innocent, and it also means to have integrity. Be blameless, right? That's what he said. You'll be blameless and spotless, sons of Elohim, right? It shine forth as lights, right? In a crooked and perverse nation. That's the thing. If we call ourselves the children of Yahweh, we have got to walk like it. We've got to deal like it. We've got to behave ourselves in business that way. We have to be above reproach. Because if we're not, we don't just bring a reproach on ourselves, we bring one on the Father. And that's the last thing that we want to do. Right? We're supposed to walk in the image of his Son, who was blameless and spotless. Right? So we can't stand in the place of Yahushua if we're not sending forth the image of Yahushua. We're sending forth a flawed image, right? That's why everything in the tabernacle had to be just so. This all makes sense. It's all one big pattern here. Everything come back to his Son and the image that is put forth of him. If we make the Son look bad, guess what? He's going to make it bad for us. He's not even going to, he'll look on us and say, I don't know you. You're supposed to look like my son, but I don't even know who you are. Got all that clown makeup on. Big rubber nose. Okay? That's the thing. Let's give forth a good image. Let's give forth a true image of his Son so that we can be blameless and spotless, right? So that we don't give off a wrong image or bring a reproach on him. That should be what we're trying to do every day. You know? So the guy told me at work, he said, man, he said, the reason why I like talking to you, he said, you the same every day. I said, well, ain't no reason to be sometime. You know what I'm saying? So the Father, the scriptures say Yahushua the Mashiach, the same yesterday, today, and forever. Well, I got to be the same way. I'm going to tell you one thing one day, and it's going to be something else the next. So anyway, that's going to do it for my Parsha today.